Sure.
Well, welcome everybody. So good to see you, and I'm really, really excited. Hi, Ellen. I'm so glad to see you. I'm really excited about this episode. Um, you can see Kelly is here, Kelly Erhart, my new friend, and she's going to be telling us about something that I just think is magic. And it's very uplifting and it's great news. So I'm really excited to introduce you to her. But let's talk a little bit about Happy Hour for Hope. I'm so happy that you come back and I would love to see more people coming so that we can have a bigger impact through our contributions. And so I invite you all to invite someone to our next gathering. Uh, I don't want this to become a pyramid scheme, but I would love it if you would invite someone and bring someone to our next session so we can continue to grow and do good, keep doing good.
Amen.
Um, so if you would like to make a contribution, all you have to do is go to, let's do this, happyhourhope.com. And on happyhourhope.com, you will see buttons where you can buy a drink, and that's the way you make your contribution. $5 for a soft drink, $10 for beer or wine, all the way up the scale to $100 for a bottle of champagne. So that's how you make your contribution, and it's certainly voluntary and no pressure, but we would really appreciate it. All of your contributions tonight go to Project Vesta that Kelly will be telling us about. And I think you're going to be inspired to support what she and her colleagues are doing. Is really great stuff. So I started Happy Hour for Hope back in June. And since then, we have contributed as a community over $4,500. And
Oh,
let me just share the different organizations that we've given to under the category of what we call this COVID relief. And that includes providing financial support to homeless families and families that are really struggling with poverty. Also, people that are dealing with food scarcity. They are part of this group. So that's Family Promise, Feeding America, and Second Harvest of Central Florida. In the category of social justice, we've made contributions to the Southern Poverty Law Center, Color of Change, and Together Rising. We supported cultural transformation in Detroit by contributing to the Society for the Reinstitutionalization of Storytelling. We have given to Friends of Guest House, who are helping women reorient themselves after incarceration, getting back into the community after incarceration. And today is Project Vesta. So I'd love to hear if some of you are celebrating something out there, if someone has some good news to share or something positive and hopeful in your world. Excuse me, who's got something good going on?
I'm sorry, it's COVID.
COVID is a good thing going
No,
on
I'm
for you?
laughing about it because I can't think of anything good. I've only got COVID all the time.
You've got COVID.
how about
on
the
your
fact that none of us have it? That's good.
Yes, okay, I'll give it
Right.
that.
That's hopeful.
Yeah.
This is my husband and I's first night joining you, and our mother, my mother, his mother-in-law is in town for the week or for 2 weeks, and that's really good for us.
That's awesome.
Good.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you for joining us, Sue. And what's your husband's name?
Sean.
Sean. And Sean, your mom?
My mom.
Your mom?
It's Sue.
Anne.
is Ann. Well,
She's here from
welcome.
Pennsylvania.
Awesome.
Welcome.
What do you?
I think you froze up, honey.
What's for dinner?
Oh, we are having, she made fried chicken for Sean, and I'm gonna have salmon, and we're gonna have good old Costco macaroni and cheese. because
Yum.
it's So
Okay.
good.
So your address is, you don't have to tell it to everybody. You can just private message it to me.
I would be happy to.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right, great,
Well, we're happy to be
Sounds-
here.
That
Thank
sounds
you.
delicious.
great. Well, let me introduce you to Kelly. I have to let someone else in here. Let me introduce you to Kelly. I met Kelly through the good fortune of my friend, Pat Linden, who I think Pat's here, right?
Yep. Pat and Kylie.
There he is. There they are. Pat told me, Pat and Kylie have been regular attendees of Happy Hour for Hope, and they told me about Kelly. Pat had met Kelly and was so inspired by the work she's doing that he said, you know, really, you should talk to her, and Happy Hour for Hope should make a contribution to her project. And so I contacted Kelly and I set up a conversation with her. And where were you, Kelly? You were in Mexico, right?
I was, yeah. Yeah, I was in Mexico, but I live in California.
She had this awesome, I mean, the ocean was behind her. And we were talking, and I was just kind of vetting her actually for, is this someone that we should make a contribution to? And as I talked to her, I was fascinated by the project. I loved the way that Kelly talked about it because she made it accessible. She made it understandable to somebody who doesn't understand all the science. And I just, as we were talking, I said, you know, this isn't just a charitable partner. This is something that the world needs to know about. And I'd love to have a full episode with you. And so I invited her to be here with us tonight. And so you all know that we usually do a kind of a pep up thing. We do a little dancing right at the beginning. So I asked Kelly if she had a song that inspires her, and she told me about this song, and I listened to it, and the lyrics are really amazing. Now, usually we just play a clip and we dance around a little bit, get the blood flowing. This is a little deeper. So I'm going to play the whole clip of this. It's from a group called Rising Appalachia, and the song is called Resilient.
I am resilient. I trust the movement. I negate the chaos, uplift the negative. I'll show up at the table again and again and again. I'll close my mouth and learn to listen. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. 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 These times are poignant. The winds have shifted. It's all we can do to stay uplifted. Pipelines through backyards, wolves howling out front. Yeah, I got my crew, but truth is what I want. Realigned and on point. Power to the peaceful, prayers to the waters, women at the center, all vessels open to give and receive. Let's see the system brought down to its knees. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. fine things. My father taught me that I'm a speck of dust and this world was made for me. So let's go and try our luck, said. I've got my roots down, 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 down deep. I've got my roots down, 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 down deep. I've got my roots down, down, down deep. I've got my roots down, down, down deep. So what are we doing here? What has been done? What are you gonna do about it when the world comes undone? My voice feels tiny, and I'm sure so does yours. Put us all together, make a mighty I am resilient, I trust the movement, I negate the chaos, uplift the negative. I'll show up at the table again and again and again. I'll close my mouth and learn to listen.
Wow. Wow, wow,
So good.
wow.
I've never even seen the video before. That was my first time seeing the video.
I wondered, the link that you sent me was the audio, and then I saw, well, there's the official video. Is
Mhm.
there a particular reason? I mean, that's an amazing song, and I can see why anyone would love it, but is there a particular reason why that resonates for you?
Oh my gosh. I mean, every lyric, every kind of line in it like hits another note for me. And I think this time so deeply is calling for us to all be more resilient. You know, every single day it feels like we're waking up into another moment of history. And it's not always a comfortable or a nice moment in history. And recently it hasn't been at all. I live in California where we've been really affected by wildfires. I've evacuated twice, and just like historical moment after historical moment. And yet at the same time, it's an opportunity to bolster my resilience and my community's resilience. And I think the one line that they say where they're like, my voice feels tiny, and I'm sure so does yours. But when we put them all together, we have a mighty roar. Just feels so true. And yeah, I love that song. It always kind of like brings me back into readiness when I'm feeling down.
Well, you've already brought us a beautiful gift in
Mm.
that song. Thank you, Kelly. And Stan asked for a link to that, so I'll make sure that you all get a link to this.
Mhm.
By the way, just so you all know, by popular demand, we've started a Happy Hour for Hope YouTube channel where all of these will be archived. So I've established the channel, and I'm working on getting the videos up there now. So sometimes people can't make these sessions and they want to be able to catch up and see what we did. So that's coming very, very soon. So you've already had a chance to hear a little bit from Kelly. Kelly, thank you so much for being here. And wondered if you could just start by telling us a little bit about yourself, and, you know, not just the career credentials, but a
Mhm.
little bit more. You mentioned you're in California, and tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah. So I grew up in Florida. I think most of you are based on the East Coast. I grew up in Central Florida. So the second harvest of Central Florida definitely is close to home, and happy to see that's being supported through Happy Hour for Hope. And yeah, I studied biology in school because I kind of grew up spending my summers in Montana, where I learned a lot about natural systems. And my career started in actually event production. I was producing large-scale music festivals and conferences around the world, mostly around environmentalism. when my desire to kind of do more struck, and I started working and doing disaster relief project management. And ever since I was a pretty little kid, I was always an environmentalist and cared a lot about how we could make a bigger impact as a species or make a good impact as a species. And that's when I kind of realized, you know, I was producing these or deploying these projects for disaster relief. And you know, we were putting a Band-Aid on the issue, but there was a larger systemic issue at bay, which was climate change. And it was causing more and more of these deployments to be necessary and exacerbating vulnerable populations in their vulnerability even more. And so I started working on different solutions. And at that point, I'm actually moved to California. And here is where I met some of my business partners, and I started first a climate positive toilet company. Interestingly, it's a dry toilet company, but I did that because it was kind of like a way that we could reach everybody, because everybody uses the bathroom, and give people a solution that could give back to their local environment. When I moved here, I got really deeply embedded into the climate community in California. I moved to San Francisco and started doing a lot of independent research with some nonprofit organizations on climate change solutions. And I spent a couple of years working on a few of them, some within soil carbon sequestration, some like highly technical. Not sure if any of you guys have heard about direct air capture, but it's these big machines that pull carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere anywhere. They're kind of like these huge shipping containers, and then can turn that carbon dioxide into a different form of carbon. And so I spent a lot of time in that space and just getting a better understanding of the problem and the solution sets. And a lot of my orientation has been towards solutions. So I really appreciate what Happy Hour for Hope is doing, because I think it's crucial to understand that whatever we set our sights to is what we're going to create. So if we just look at the problem of climate change and we're bogged down by it and we're depressed by it, then we're going to keep creating that problem. But if we can look to solutions and put our energy towards solutions, then there's real hope. And so I think it's amazing that you all are gathering as often as you are to talk about what brings you hope and to be able to put your minds towards that. I founded Project Vesta in 2019 with my colleagues as a potentially really important solution towards solving for climate change. And I'm really excited to share with you about it. I have a lot of other kind of hobbies and things. I'm an avid gardener and permaculturist, and just generally really inspired by the natural world and try to imbue nature's way of operating into the things that I do and create. There's a field called biomimicry, which is creating things that are inspired by nature. And I find that the more and more we do that, kind of the better and better we can be in harmony with natural systems and not creating unintended consequences from the things that we create. And that's exactly what Project Vesta does. And yeah, excited to be here.
Well, so tell us about Project Vesta.
Yeah, can I share my screen?
You can. Let me make sure you have that ability.
Let's see.
Okay.
There we go.
Should be good.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Great. So at Project Vesta, we are turning the tide on climate change. And that's kind of a pun because we're using waves to try and reverse climate change. But that's what we're doing. So at Project Vesta, we ask this question to ourselves and we ask this question to our supporters: is what is the future that you imagine for your children and for their planet and the children that will follow them? You know, we imagine a world where we have breathing room, literally, in a world where humanity has removed enough carbon dioxide from the atmosphere to return to pre-industrial levels, where we have a thriving, balanced biosphere. And really, we believe that this more beautiful world is possible. So we exist to remove enough carbon dioxide from the atmosphere to make our world livable for future generations. So to give you a picture of our current state, you know, a lot of us hear about climate change and it's a scary thing for sure. Unfortunately, humanity has kind of gotten to this point where even if we were to stop all emissions tomorrow, we have what's called a carbon debt in the atmosphere. And so currently, we would need to reduce emissions about half. And given the current state of technologies and political will, we can't really quite do that. So as I said, we need to begin removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere in order to bring our planet back into a place of balance. And so myself and my colleagues, we looked at this and we looked to nature for how nature does this process. So nature has a way to remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. It's something that we probably all heard of. I think I might be a slide ahead. Am I a slide ahead? Yeah. So it's something that, which one are you guys seeing? Nature has a way?
Nature has a way.
Okay, great.
It's right.
Nature has a way, great. So
Yeah.
the process that we looked to is something that many of us probably learned about in 8th grade geology class. It's called the carbonate silicate cycle. And so what happens in the carbonate silicate cycle is that rain will fall down on volcanic rocks. So a volcano will erupt and carbon goes into the atmosphere. Rain falls on the rocks that are spread onto the surface. And then slowly there's a chemical reaction that happens with those volcanic rocks and the rain that brings the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and into water. It ends up eventually onto the ocean floor as limestone. And this process has worked for billions of years to lock up trillions of tons of carbon dioxide. So something that many people don't know is that actually 99.9% of all carbon on Earth, so all the carbon in the atmosphere, all the carbon-based life forms like me and you, of all carbon on Earth, 99.9% of it is rock. So the question that we asked is, how do we speed this process up? And we've found a way to accelerate this process. So what we do is we transport olivine rocks to beaches where the wave action breaks them down and accelerates the process of carbon capture. So like I said, we take olivine, which is a volcanic mineral with a green tinge, and it's available really in massive global abundance. And then we take it to a beach. We create these green sand beaches that mimic natural ones you maybe have heard of or even been to. Papakolea in Hawaii, it's a gorgeous green sand beach. And then we use the free natural wave energy to accelerate carbon dioxide removal. So the mechanical action of olivine tumbling breaks it down and gives it more surface area so that it can capture carbon dioxide more quickly. So one of a kind of combined reason that we're really excited about this solution is that it's scalable. We have enough olivine, it's globally abundant and accessible. It's available on every single continent. It actually makes up over 50% of the upper mantle, this rock. We have ample beaches. So a really cool calculation that we've been able to see is that we would only need to cover 2% of global shelf seas. So that's coastal seas, beaches, basically, that in order to capture 100% of humanity's annual emissions. And it's really low cost. So at scale, we anticipate that this technology is only going to cost $10 per ton. And so at today's rates of carbon dioxide removal, that's about as much and even sometimes cheaper than planting a tree even. So, it requires no new technology. It uses existing infrastructure and we can scale it across thousands of sites. I mentioned earlier some of the more technological approaches to climate change, and you'll see them here: direct air capture, different other air capture technologies. And Project Vesta's solution is about 2,000 times cheaper than the next affordable method. These methods that are listed here are all permanent forms of carbon capture, so it's pretty significant. And just this is illustrating a little bit more about why it's so compelling. So many of the solutions for carbon dioxide removal are either cheap, permanent, or scalable, but not all three. So what Project Vesta is it actually accomplishes all of those three. So our approach doesn't compete for arable land. It doesn't compete for water and energy that really limit the potential growth of other strategies. Now, this isn't to say that other strategies shouldn't happen. We definitely believe it's going to take a suite of solutions. We need all of the tree planting and all of the regenerative agriculture possible in order to really make a dent on climate change. But it is to say that we think we probably hold a pretty significant portion of the carbon removal that can be done. And so where we are today is that we're sitting on top of about 30 years of lab research. So Project Vesta is trying to cross this chasm, the chasm of lab research to global deployment. So what we're doing today is trying to prove that this works in real life, that this works in an ocean ecosystem and isn't just a lab solution. So currently, I said we founded the company in April of 2019. We're a nonprofit organization, and we've been really busy since that time. We have identified our pilot beach. We've already conducted a lot of diligence, and we've got our experimental design completely ready to go to begin measuring the safety and the speed of olivine weathering. So where we are right now is fundraising, and excitingly, we actually have some of our colleagues going down to the first pilot beach site next month to begin doing some more rigorous baseline sampling and just getting this off the ground. Another key piece of what we're doing is making everything open source. So we believe that it's going to take a global community to make a difference in climate change. So we're meeting these 3 milestones of proving the safety, measuring the speed, and producing a life cycle assessment so that we can have this kind of integrated protocol that would enable governments, nonprofit organizations, and companies to deploy this solution with somewhat predictable results when you look at different beach sites. So we've been raising about 2.5 million to fund our beaches and scale our work. So far, we are at about $875,000, which is exciting. And this is just sharing a little bit more about where we are today. So we really feel that the world is ready for this. In 2020, we had our first ever purchase of negative emissions from coastal enhanced weathering by Stripe. I'm not sure if you all heard, but Stripe, the payment processing company, they're a big tech company, and they kind of led the way in partnership with a couple other tech companies to reduce their carbon emissions and bring themselves to a neutral place. So they made a commitment that they would purchase carbon removal credits, and they chose 4 companies to buy those from, and we were one of them. So that was really exciting. We've begun taking samples at our pilot beach, as I mentioned, and thus far we've raised over 500,000. As I said, we're about 875,000 today of that 2.5 million goal. We have an amazing team of scientists. Some of the top scientists in the field of olivine and enhanced weathering are on our team. We have Francesc Montserrat, who's studied olivine for over 15 years. We have Shanice Stopitsky, who is an incredible marine ecologist and climate change ecologist. She also is, she's so cool. Most of the time she takes our scientific team calls from a submarine in the ocean because she runs like a submarine company as well. We are partnered with Deltaris, which is a Dutch independent research institute, and then Paul Knops, who wrote a lot of the early papers on olivine. And then this is our team. There's Tom Green, who's our executive director today. Eric Matzner, myself, and David Snyder are all co-founders of this project. And then Desiree Tavera. And we have a really fun time working together. And so, like I said, we exist to turn the tide on climate change. And we want to remove gigatons of excess carbon dioxide from our atmosphere so that we and our descendants can enjoy this planet well into the future. We're a nonprofit, so all of the donations we receive may be tax deductible, and that's the general gist of what this project is. I know it's a little technical, but I'd love any questions or thoughts that you all have.
Mary, yeah, jump right in.
Kelly, I'm so inspired, and Snow over there in the corner on the third, she and I and another person are writing a book. I'd love to talk to you a little bit later and maybe use you as a case study in our book, but that's for later. And for now, I'm just curious why you chose to be a nonprofit with the strong intention that you have to scale.
Yeah. So we're a nonprofit today because we really want to prove the science first. So we want to be absolutely positive that this solution isn't going to have any unintended consequences. So at our first pilot beaches, we're monitoring, over 160 parameters, and just really making sure we understand the full suite of effects. We have a really good reason to believe that there's going to be only beneficial effects. So one of the co-benefits I didn't mention is that when you put olivine in a beach environment, it actually de-acidifies the ocean. And so I'm sure a lot of you have heard about coral reefs dying off, and a lot of that has to do with acidification of the ocean. So we hope that it will provide that benefit. But being a nonprofit is really helpful when you want to work with scientists, and we really didn't want to be kind of manipulated or perverted by market influences in this stage of trying to develop the science. We wanted to have full confidence of our team, and of our supporters that we're doing this to make a change, not to make a dollar. So today we're a nonprofit. I think that once this science is proven, there's a really strong case for a number of businesses to form. The carbon credit market is growing every day, and this is going to be a big solution within it, I think. So I think a for-profit company is in the works once we have it dialed in.
Well, modestly, we think we have a formula for working on the UN Sustainable Development Goals that nobody's put forward yet, starting with climate change. So you would be such a great case for that. I mean, whether it works or doesn't, I think it's actually more important that somebody gives it a go.
Yeah.
Do you know Paul Hoffman's Project Drawdown, and are you part of the 100-something solutions there?
I do know that project. Yeah, I'm really good friends with some of the founders of it with him. And enhanced weathering right now is in the coming attractions portion of Drawdown. So a bit in the presentation, I spoke to the integrated algorithm that we're creating. Alongside that algorithm, we're also writing a report with a number of scientists to submit to the IPCC, which is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. To try and get enhanced weathering over the line of a coming attraction, and into the field of view of a real solution. So I think that once we do that, there's a good chance that we do that at Drawdown as well. We presented at the conference last year in Pennsylvania.
Congratulations. It's really a very, very ambitious and I think doable effort. It's such a great
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Kelly, I don't remember seeing a timeline. What's the kind of the time structure around this?
Yeah. Well, we're a little bit behind because COVID meant that governments closed and we weren't able to get our permits through as quickly as we would have liked. But as I mentioned, we have our team going down next month, and we're hoping to have Stand on the Beach, by Q1 of next year. Following that, we anticipate it'll be, 6 months before we have a lot of results from the first beaches, or results that would allow us to move forward beyond that. But then after a year, when we have a year's worth of data, so hopefully by 2022, early 2022, we can begin looking at deployment at other sites.
And those two beaches, the one that you're actually doing the olivine, and then the other is like the control beach,
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And they're like neighbors.
Mm-hmm. They're right next to each other. It's really cool. There's a set of 2 coves. So they have basically the exact same components, they're the exact same ocean environment. So we can test with really high accuracy the difference that happens in the ecosystem when we put olivine in.
What kind of differences are you testing for?
Yeah,
and what are the results you're hoping for?
Yeah. So we're looking for everything from tissue toxicology on corals to different mineral content that is released in the water. The main thing that we're expecting to see is a change in alkalinity. So it should raise the pH, which it brings down the acidity of the ocean and then provides the opportunity for marine organisms to thrive. So when olivine interacts with the ocean, it turns the carbonate from the atmosphere turns into calcium carbonate, which is a bioavailable form of carbon that marine organisms can use in their shells and in their skeletons. So we anticipate that that'll be really beneficial to them. And so we're monitoring for a lot of that and just monitoring to understand exactly how fast the olivine weathers as well. So there's a question, will it take 6 months? Will it take a year? How long will it take for all of the olivine to fully sequester that carbon dioxide?
And the olivine, in what form are you introducing it to the beach? And how does it get into that form?
Yeah, so slightly crushed. We take the olivine, we crush it slightly, and then we put it on the beaches so that the waves can do the rest of the work. We see the ocean is kind of like the world's largest ball tumbler. So that's a key component of this project, is that we don't have to rely on industrial energy sources to crush up the olivine, which would be pretty energy intensive.
So when you say slightly crushed, are we talking like pebbles or like coarse sand?
Both. We've found that when there's difference in grain size, it actually speeds up the reaction because of the particle collisions. They break down more when there's a difference in grain size.
Cool.
Kelly, do you anticipate anybody screaming that you're in their backyard, or more precisely their beach? You know, the situation with windmills off the Kennedy compound, anything like this coming up?
Yeah, you know, I'm sure that if we tried to go to some locations, that would be an issue. And because of that, you know, there's a number of options that we can employ. So for our first beaches, we're doing them in pretty unpopulated areas, private beaches that people don't go to. So A, so that we can monitor the effects really well, and B, so that we don't really have to deal with as much of that. But ongoing, we think that it's actually a really good case for like an ecotourism site. So I mentioned the green beach in Papakolea in Hawaii. These beaches are actually naturally occurring. There's just not that many of them. And so we think that this could be a really cool ecotourist destination type of thing for some governments. We also think that with a lot of governments trying to meet their targets for the Paris Agreement, they'll want to put olivine on their coastlines so that they can be a carbon neutral country. And then the last piece is that we don't always have to have it be right on the beach, like on the beach coast. It can be just underneath the water. So in many cases, it doesn't even need to be visible. So we can rely on that as well.
Do you have any sense of how long so you're going to put the olivine on the beach? How long is it going to persist on the beach? Do you have any sense of like, is this weeks, months, years?
It totally depends.
Yeah.
It depends on the refresh rate of the waves. So at a really active beach, we would need to refresh the olivine more frequently, or we could just call it a done deal. But it definitely depends on the activity of the beach. I think, I'm not sure where all of you live, but you all are mostly on the East Coast, and we have one of our team members from North Carolina, and his family is in the industry of beach nourishment, where they put sand on beaches to make sure that people can continue living on the coastline. And so we actually think that Project Vesta could serve a pretty significant role in that ecosystem as well, both like offsetting the cost of sand, because it's a pretty expensive and slowly it's an industry that's running out of sources, but then also to provide some co-benefits to doing beach nourishment. And for those ecosystems, yeah, once again, it's going to depend on how quickly the waves refresh, but we think it's a great solution for that.
Fascinating. I love this project. It's so cool.
It's cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mary, yeah.
Anybody else have a question before I ask? I'm going to get geeky on this one.
Go.
Do you have you put together any proprietary intellectual property?
We're not going to make anything proprietary. Everything we'll do is going to be open sourced. So what we're doing right now is we have our experimental setup, which definitely is one of a kind and never done before. And then we're also creating this algorithm that I mentioned. So what we're calling it is the Coastal Enhanced Weathering Integrated Assessment Model. And that will be, I think, one of our biggest gifts to the climate community, because it'll be something that anyone can use. But as I mentioned, we're going to keep it open source.
Yeah, the reason I asked you that question is because not everybody shares your particular philosophy. Congratulations to you. And if you do come up with anything that they can reverse engineer, then it will become proprietary. And so it might just be a good idea to get some good legal eyes on this, so that what you're trying to provide to the world community, which is exactly the way it ought to be done, isn't manipulated by people who use your work, then go to government or something and say they can super scale it. They add one little point to the algorithm and off they go. So that's why I'm asking the question, not to encourage you to be for profit, just to say that I think this is a very, very, very doable idea.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for that feedback, and definitely something that we think about often, and try and determine. There's a point in which open source makes sense or proprietary information makes sense, and I do think it's a fine line, and something that we're in the continuous evolution of trying to understand. There's already been one company that tried to say that they were going to do green sand beaches, and we were like, whoa, don't do that. Like, this hasn't even been proven yet. You can't do that. Right. And they backed down. But it's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, we have somebody who might be willing to help you if you just want to. I'll reach out to you, and you can also reach out to us. And she's an intellectual property person. She's on our faculty, and she cares about this kind of stuff.
Cool.
Thank you.
Hey, Kelly, I just want to say I'm so glad you and Andrew were able to connect. I mean, obviously it's a super compelling project, and clearly everybody is very interested. I did have a question, and it might be a little ahead of itself, but I was wondering if you guys had thought about any co-location projects yet. I know you're still testing and collecting data, but clearly the fossil fuels industry is interested in this kind of, they're the bad guys, right? So they kind of have to overcompensate in some way. And so if nothing else, that might be an interesting strategic partner. But have you thought about any of those co-location strategies, and does that impact anything?
Well, yeah. So I think we have some ethical considerations around working with some partners. But at the same time, we need to work with people who know how to scale, right? And so myself and others on my team, a piece of why we're in this is because we are entrepreneurs. We've scaled companies before, and so we bring a different frame to this than the typical scientific frame. And so certainly, I think a unique thing that we're doing is we're also looking at the whole supply chain, and we are looking for who would be some of the more pivotal partners. And I think more than fossil fuel companies is actually mining companies. So mining companies that have a significant carbon debt or have done a lot of damage to the environment stand a chance to do some good by maybe donating olivine. Olivine is actually the tailings of many mining operations because it makes up so much of the upper mantle. So in many cases, we can get it without even having to do mining. So there's that component. And then there's also the component of scaling by working with different shipping companies. There's lots of shipping companies that are sending empty containers across the ocean at any given time. And so when it comes to transporting olivine, there's lots of partnerships in that way that we've looked to. And yeah, I think that when you talk to people in the environmental movement, people are pretty grossed out by working with fossil fuel companies or mining companies. I have some ethical qualms, and at the same time, I know that this issue is so big that we need to work with people who have an understanding of scaling and size. And if those kinds of companies are actually willing to make a difference and their intentions are true, then sure. And then I'm not sure if I answered your question or if you had a question around location specifically.
No, that's great. That's cool. It's just cool to hear you guys are thinking about that.
Yeah, definitely.
You may also find that people, that not so good actors, I won't call them bad actors, but not so good actors also learn stuff from you and come across as a result of the the collaboration, right? So that's really a cool
Yeah.
opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And we
think
can do, there's an opportunity for sustainable mining, and there's some really cool ecological techniques that have been rising lately around kind of ecosystem restoration that you can do at mining sites where it's been a damaged ecosystem, and you can introduce different beneficial bacteria and mushrooms and things like this, and actually leave it better than when you got there. So there's a way that I think we could incentivize some of that as well.
Yeah, yeah, really cool. Amazing.
Have you got any hospitality partners?
We are talking with a hotel group right now, and that's certainly an interesting angle, is working directly with someone who's interested in ecotourism. It hasn't produced anything just yet, but I think that's one angle.
And international, I saw the Dutch Foundation, but otherwise, are you mostly U.S. interested? Is that what I know you're globally interested because you're trying to save us all.
Yeah.
How about your international partnerships?
We don't have many international partnerships just yet. We do have a few partners in the Netherlands. A lot of the research that has been done on olivine and enhanced weathering comes out of the Netherlands. So there's a few different organizations there that we work with. Climate Cleanup, they're somewhat global. We work with them a bit. But yeah, no government partnerships just yet, though. I think that will be a key piece of the plan.
I'd love to talk to you more about that. Like the C20, I think would be an interesting.
Yeah.
C40 now. Interesting to look. Yeah, great work. Great idea. Anything that's scalable and cheap and good. I mean,
I know.
More of that? Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is in fact magic.
I know people. I think
That's-
that the like initial reaction is like, this is too good to be true. That can't actually work, right?
Yeah.
But it seems like it will, based on the last 30 years of research and the community of scientists that we've spoken to, we think it's going to work.
Then a question about your outcome measure. Your primary outcome would be reduction of CO2 in the atmosphere. And that's, I guess, always at a worldwide level, and you couldn't detect it. So you're measuring all of these secondary things also to protect against unintended consequences. But is it because they're more localized results where you could measure the impact, and you're just wanting to make sure that? My real question is there any localized impact of CO2 reduction, or is it immediately dissipated throughout the whole atmosphere and it's gone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's, you can detect it at a global scale by the parts per million of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere.
Eventually.
So at scale, we would be able to see that.
Yeah.
And hopefully, we're able to get so big that we do see that reduction. And then locally, what we'll see more immediately will be a reduction of acidity in the ocean. So that'll be the more localized change. We won't see it so much in the atmospheric conditions as we will in the ocean conditions. And I'll just say for a moment, there's a really cool organization that you all should look into called Green Wave. They're based out of New England, I believe. And they've developed this system called 3D mariculture, which is actually a way to bring old fishing communities that have kind of gone destitute because of overfishing or what have you, into a way to utilize their existing infrastructure, boats, namely, and then do carbon removal and also create revenue streams for themselves. So what they do is they have this like 3D system where you're growing kelp and oysters and mussels off of buoys, basically. And that sequesters carbon from the atmosphere and fixes it into the ocean. And it also grows kelp, oysters, and mussels. So it creates recurring income for these communities. Something that I would love to do is partner with them in the future so that we can kind of do projects together, right? So we bring down the ocean acidity, and then their kelp and their oysters and mussels grow better in the locations where we are, and kind of create like a really cool little ecosystem there. But that's a vision. But yeah, look up Green Wave. They're amazing.
Fantastic.
Kelly, for Project Vesta, what's your, I don't know how to say it any better, what's your carbon footprint? Like, there's got to be carbon that's spent when you're crushing the olivine and
Yep.
spreading it out and things like that? How does that figure into the equation?
Yeah, so the project plans that we have, basically the way that we've designed our experiments and our deployments is that we will always remove 20 times or more as much carbon dioxide as we've emitted. And so for every ton of olivine that we put onto the beach, 1.25 tons of carbon dioxide is removed from the atmosphere. And at scale, we anticipate we'll be able to remove, or it'll be more than 20 times as much once we have our own kind of mining sources and all of that. But a key piece of the design is because olivine is so abundant, we in most cases can source it within 300 kilometers of the beach site. So that keeps the carbon cost down pretty low.
Amazing. So I think you've got probably about 20 new fans.
Sure.
This is, I just know that every single person listening to you and hearing this is like, I bet your energy level has gone up since you've been here, because this is really incredible. And, it's thanks to Pat that I found you. So thank you, Pat, my friend. And
just connecting smart people with other good people. No worries.
well, it's a good point, because this is how someone said to me the other day that they love Happy Hour for Hope because of the curating, like who shows up as a guest and who shows up as an attendee. And so I welcome any of your recommendations for people who can be a part of this to share what's good, what's going well. Kelly, what can we do to support you and your colleagues in this work?
Thank you. So one thing you can do is you can share about Project Vesta. Our website is projectvesta.org. I'll write that in the chat as well. But we're on Facebook and Twitter too. But the best place, you can share us however you'd like. We also have a really great video on YouTube that's easily shareable to get the word out. And any donation you can make, as well as if you know anyone who might be interested in donating, we rely on individual donors. We up until this point have just had individual donations from everyone donating $5 to donating $50,000, and every little bit helps. So that would be helpful. And I put my email in the chat as well in case anyone wants to get in touch with me or has any questions.
Jennifer put in the chat that we need a Shark Tank for environmental work. And so if any of you know of an angel investor out there.
Does anybody remember who Des mentioned this morning? Stan, Andrew, I cannot remember the woman's name, but Des said, "Oh, she's my superhero. She is looking for stuff that's being put forward by women." And I can't, her name is just like evaporated. Anybody else have it?
So Kelly, there's a bunch of us here that are members of the Association for Managers of Innovation, and we're in love with innovation. And so we just had a meeting earlier today, and I don't remember who that was, Karen.
Yeah,
it wasn't Des.
No, she's cool too, but maybe we could ping Des and connect Kelly and Des somehow, because
there cannot be that many Black queer venture capitalists out there.
They're probably
female.
I have the name. It's actually Backstage Capital.
Backstage Capital.
Name of her firm, and her name is Arlen Hamilton. I'll put it in the chat.
There you go. That's it. Yeah, Arlen. Yeah, beautiful.
Great.
Well, Kelly, thank you, not just for being here, but thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you for lifting our spirits. Stan put in the chat that just your presence changes things here.
Oh, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to meet you all and to share about Project Vesta. Thanks for taking the time to learn with me. And I hope we'll all be in touch.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yep.
So I want to just make one kind of special announcement that we're excited about because so many of you attend regularly. You know that the second Thursday of every month is Magic on Purpose that features my gang of magicians. And I just want to share something with you that we're very excited about. And it is this. We have a website. So I established Magic on Purpose to be just a support group for magicians who are using magic for purposes beyond entertainment. And we were just a group of friends supporting each other. And then we got an opportunity to work together, and now it's becoming a thing. And so we've gone public with Magic on Purpose. It's magiconpurpose.com. And you can go there and kind of see what we're up to. Dan, who has been such a central figure in creating Magic on Purpose, has put together a video for us that'll be dropping soon. And so we'll be sharing that with all of you. What's that?
It's just dropped in the chat.
Oh boy. Oh boy. By the way, speaking of when I used the word drop, thinking that I was cool, it's going to drop soon. Pat told me that if I had Kelly on this show, that it would make Happy Hour for Hope officially woke. Like he said, you've contributed to COVID relief, social justice, all these things. Climate change, man, then you'll be woke. And so for our next happy hour, which is on November 12th, it's this guy, the guy I just mentioned. Dan Trometer is going to be here. Dan's my brother, and he's my brother from another mother. He's a keynote speaker, workshop facilitator, coach, magician. He's amazing. And he's going to share some of his wisdom through magic on November 12th. So mark your calendars. Anything else for the good of the order, my friends?
Just a thank you as usual, Andrew. You started off by saying what makes us happy. This group, you, Kelly. Thank you so much. I feel much happier than when I got on the call.
Oh, thank you for being here, Mary. It's always wonderful when you're here.
The only thing that only thing I'd like to share, and I would be sharing this whether I was the speaker next time or not. I think we can all agree this.
Oh, you're freezing up, Dan. You're freezing up.
We're on the edge of our seats.
Yeah, we're on the edge of our seats.
Am I back?
Okay, you're back. You're back. You're back.
I'm back. So I would be saying this whether, even if I wasn't the presenter next time. I think we can all agree that this is a pretty special thing that got here, right? I think that it is a shame. As much as I love seeing all your faces, there's 20 of us. I think we need to like quadruple this. So I'm going to challenge everybody to come back next time and bring 2 people with you. Because Andrew, you've started something here that can make a big deal change in the world. But you can't do it alone. We need to all pull our weight and try to bring more people to this every time.
Well, it has kind of surprised me because usually when people hear that I'm going to be somewhere, it's like a mob, it's like everybody wants, a little piece of Andy. And so I've been really shocked that.
That's your folk album cover.
A little piece of Andy.
Yeah.
But that is a wonderful challenge, Dan. I agree that this is such a great we've got a great culture here, and we've got a great purpose for which we're gathering. And so it would be wonderful if you all brought a person or two.
Can we all
Someone
get your mic?
nice.
Can we all get your mic then, Andy? That is such a cool voice that you have. You always have a wonderful voice, but I am so mic obsessed. Beautiful job.
Thank you very much. I've tried to up my game for all of you. Okay, gang, who loves ya?
Thank
I
you.
do.
Bye.
Bye.
We'll
Thanks,
see you soon.
Kelly.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Be well.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming,
Bye.
Brandon.
We will reach out.
Well done, Andrew. Well done.
Thank you, buddy.
Woo, woo.
I missed.